Celeste Marrow was wearing the Alpha King's shirt. The white linen hung loosely from her shoulders as she stood barefoot inside the old lover's tower, one hand gripping the open doorway. Behind her, the fire had burned down to red coals. Adrian Blackthorne's ceremonial coat lay across a chair, one silver button torn away and resting beside the bed. Claire Ashford stopped in the corridor. She did not scream. Her fingers remained wrapped around the sealed council notice she had carried through the sleeping castle. Only the faint crumpling of parchment betrayed the pressure of her grip. Adrian rose from the edge of the bed. His hair was disordered. A fresh bite mark darkened the skin beneath his collarbone. Celeste's scent clung to him so heavily that Claire's wolf recoiled inside her. "Claire." He said her name as though it were an explanation. Celeste lowered her eyes, but triumph tightened the corner of her mouth. "She came to me after midnight," Adrian said. "She was frightened. She remembered the ambush." "And you comforted her?" Claire's voice was quiet. Adrian's jaw hardened. "I thought she was dead for 6 years." Claire looked at the woman who had supposedly burned inside an overturned carriage. Celeste looked painfully alive beneath the Alpha King's shirt. "I didn't plan this," Adrian continued. "No," Claire said. "You only chose it." The words struck more cleanly than a blade. Adrian stepped into the corridor and pulled the door shut behind him, blocking Celeste from view. His expression shifted into the controlled mask he wore before hostile councils. "The Eastern delegates arrive tomorrow. Gideon is already questioning the stability of the crown. I need 48 hours before anyone learns what happened." Claire stared at him. Not an apology, not remorse, a request for silence. Her stomach turned. Inside the pocket of her cloak rested a medical envelope stamped with the seal of royal healer Nora Ellison. Claire had planned to place it in Adrian's hands tonight. She had imagined his disbelief, then joy, when he learned that after 3 years of waiting, the royal bloodline would continue. Now the envelope felt heavier than iron. 48 hours for your crown," she said. "How many did you reserve for my dignity?" Adrian's face tightened. "Do not turn one mistake into a political disaster." Claire almost smiled. For 8 years, she had balanced his treasury, calmed rebellious alphas, rebuilt healing houses, and protected his kingdom from consequences he never saw approaching. Now she was the disaster. She slowly removed the moonstone Luna ring from her finger. Adrian watched the pale mark it left behind. "Claire, don't." It was the first honest fear in his voice. She placed the ring in her palm and closed her fingers around it. "You have 48 hours, she said. "Use them to understand what you destroyed." She walked away before he could command her to stay. The royal nursery had remained locked since their wedding. Claire entered alone, carrying a single candle. Moonlight spilled across the ancient cradle, positioned beneath the northern window. It had been carved from white ash and bordered with silver runes that only a crowned Luna could awaken. She opened the medical envelope. 8 weeks, healthy pregnancy, 2 distinct heart rhythms. Her vision blurred, but no tears fell. Claire placed the report inside the cradle. Beside it, she laid a copied page from the pack ledger, showing secret payments authorized by Council Chairman Gideon Voss. Finally, she set the Luna ring upon the folded blanket. The moonstone beneath the cradle remained dark. Claire drew a silver nursery blade across her palm. Blood welled brightly. She pressed her hand against the central rune. "I, Claire Ashford, lawful Luna and mother of the royal heirs, invoke maternal sovereignty." The cradle shuddered. Silver markings ignited beneath her hand, racing around the wooden frame. The nursery doors locked themselves. The moonstone turned black, swallowing the ring and documents beneath a translucent seal. Pain tore through Claire's mate mark as the ancient law recognized her decision. She bent over the cradle, breathing through it. "I will not let them make pawns of you." Before sunrise, she changed into a healer's gray cloak and left Blackthorne Keep through the medicine delivery passage. She carried no jewels, no royal crest, and no farewell letter. When Adrian finally entered the nursery, the sealed cradle stood beneath the fading moon. He placed his hand against it. The moonstone pulsed once, then again. 2 separate heartbeats answered beneath his palm. "My dear friends, stories are built with words, but channels are built with trust. We know that a subscription should not be requested as though it is owed. It should be earned through consistent stories, thoughtful narration, and respect for your time. So we will not pressure you. Instead, We simply ask you to judge us honestly. If this story has captured your attention, touched your heart, or made you curious about what happens next, please consider subscribing. And if something is missing, tell us. Your constructive words can help us become the channel you would be proud to return to. Thank you for giving a new storyteller a chance. Now, let us return to the moment where everything begins to change. The first fracture struck Claire before the castle bells announced dawn. She had reached the lower pine road when the mate mark beneath her collarbone suddenly burned. The pain drove through her ribs like a heated wire pulled tight between her body and Blackthorne Keep. Her knees hit the frozen earth. For one breathless moment, she saw Adrian as if she stood beside him. His hand rested against the sealed cradle. His face had gone white beneath the moonlight. Then the vision vanished. Claire pressed one hand over her mouth and the other over the small sanctuary token hidden beneath her cloak. The iron disc had been given to her 2 years earlier, after she opened Nightfall's medicine stores during the silver fever outbreak along Ironwood's border. At the time, Alpha Rowan Mercer had called it repayment. Now it was her only shield. Claire forced herself upright. Each step away from Adrian stretched the damaged bond farther, scraping at her bones. Her wolf paced inside her, distressed by the distance from its mate, unable to understand that returning would be more dangerous than the pain. She reached into her satchel and removed a small packet of willow bark and dried moon mint. She chewed both without water, letting the bitterness settle on her tongue. Severing the bond would stop Adrian from tracking her so easily. It could also give the Crown Council an argument that she had abandoned the royal heirs. Claire would not hand Gideon Voss that weapon. Not yet, she whispered, touching the burning mark. You do not get to use my pain against my children. The sound of horses reached her an hour later. Claire left the road and moved into the trees, but she was slower than usual. The bond sickness dragged at her limbs. By the time 6 royal guards entered the clearing, she had barely reached the old stone bridge over Grey River. Mason Reed rode at their head. The royal beta dismounted, his face hard with duty, and something more troubled beneath it. Claire. She stood on the near side of the bridge, one hand beneath her cloak. You will address me without title, she said. Your king removed my right to wear it. Mason flinched. I have orders to return you to Blackthorne Keep. Read them. His gaze shifted toward the soldiers behind him. The order is valid. That was not my request. Claire extended her hand. Read it aloud. Mason unfolded the parchment. Adrian's royal seal glimmered at the bottom, pressed in black wax. By command of the Alpha King, Mason began, Claire Ashford is to be detained and returned with any royal issue she carries. The clearing became unnaturally still. Claire watched his expression change. Any royal issue, she repeated. Interesting wording. Mason lowered the page. You invoked the Cradle law. I invoked a law written to protect unborn heirs from powerful men who mistake possession for guardianship. Adrian will not hurt you. He already did. Mason's jaw tightened. He did not know about the child. Neither should the person who wrote that order. Her words landed heavily. Claire pointed toward the wax. Look at the crown above the wolf's head. Mason brought the document closer. The carved crown tilted left. Adrian's authentic royal seal always tilted right. One of the guards shifted uneasily. Claire continued before Mason could recover. Under the maternal protection statute, no pregnant Luna may be detained without examination by an independent healer and 2 council witnesses. Do you have either? No. Then stepping onto this bridge would make every man here complicit in the unlawful seizure of royal heirs. The youngest guard looked at Mason in alarm. Mason stared at Claire for several long seconds. Loyalty warred with the suspicion now spreading across his face. Finally, he stepped aside. I cannot protect you once you cross. I am not asking you to. Claire walked onto the bridge. The invisible boundary hit her halfway across. Nightfall's pack bond tore loose with a force that stole the air from her lungs. She gripped the stone railing, refusing to fall while 500 distant pack voices faded into silence. Behind her, Mason called her name. Claire kept moving. By sunset, she reached the Ironwood border clinic. The guard at the gate examined her sanctuary token, then noticed the faint outline of the Nightfall mate mark above her collar. His hand moved toward the alarm bell. The clinic door opened before he touched it. Rowan Mercer stepped into the cold, broad-shouldered and dressed in a dark field coat. His gray eyes moved from Claire's bloodless face to the token in her hand. I wondered how long Blackthorne would take to waste the best mind in his kingdom. Claire swayed but remained standing. A messenger raven dropped onto the gate behind him. Attached to its leg was another arrest order bearing Adrian's seal. Miles away, Adrian stared at an identical copy in Mason's hands. I never signed this, he said. Yet someone inside Nightfall had already declared Claire and her unborn heirs fugitives. Rowan did not move to catch Claire when her knees weakened. He stepped aside and ordered the border healer to open the examination room. The restraint surprised her more than kindness would have. Powerful men usually reached first and asked permission later. Rowan Mercer watched, measured, and waited for consent. Inside, Dr. Maeve Hart locked the door and held out a hand for Claire's medical envelope. Claire kept it against her chest. Independent examination only, she said. No copies, no messages, and no discussion of the heirs without my approval. Maeve glanced at Rowan. He turned his back without protest. The healer's fingers hovered over Claire's abdomen while blue light gathered beneath her palms. 2 heartbeats fluttered inside the room, quick and fragile. Claire closed her eyes. Maeve's expression softened, then tightened. The children are stable, she said. But your bond fracture is pulling strength from all 3 of you. Claire opened her eyes. Can it be stopped without severance? Maeve shook her head. Managed, perhaps. Not stopped. Rowan spoke from the window. You may remain under Ironwood Sanctuary for 30 days. During that time, no Nightfall soldier crosses the boundary without my challenge. Claire studied his reflection in glass. Protection with conditions, she said. Rowan faced her. Everything has conditions. 3 border villages have lost food and medicine shipments. My council blames weather, thieves, and Nightfall interference. I blame incompetence until evidence proves malice. Help me find the truth, and Ironwood will recognize your claim independently of Adrian's crown. He expected offense. Claire felt only relief. A task had edges, unlike grief. Show me the records. Rowan's mouth shifted, almost a smile. You crossed a river half-conscious, and your villages are still hungry. Maeve muttered that Alphas and Lunas were impossible, then pressed an Ironwood seal into wax. By noon, Claire sat inside Ironwood's supply office with 3 ledgers, 6 route maps, and a cup of untouched broth. The shortages appeared random until she compared delivery weights against bridge tolls. Every missing shipment had been recorded as crossing roads that heavy wagons could not safely use during winter. Someone is redirecting them before departure, Claire said. Rowan leaned over the map, close enough for her to smell cedar, but he did not crowd her. She marked 3 alternate routes. Send empty wagons here, quietly. Whoever is stealing your supplies will follow the convoy and reveal their watchers tonight. Rowan gave the order. Before sunset, his scouts captured 2 armed merchants shadowing the decoy wagons. Meanwhile, Claire redirected the real medicine through an abandoned mining track and negotiated emergency grain from a human miller who remembered her from the silver fever years. By nightfall, all 3 villages had supplies. The council chamber changed when Claire entered. Earlier, several elders had called her a liability. Now one of them rose first. Rowan placed the delivery reports before his council. Claire Ashford found in 6 hours what my officials missed for 6 weeks. Claire disliked praise, but she accepted recognition silently. Then the outer doors opened. A nightfall messenger entered beneath a white flag, rain dripping from his cloak. He carried a black parchment, stamped with the royal wolf. By order of Alpha King Adrian Blackthorne, Ironwood must surrender Claire Ashford and the unborn royal heir before midnight tomorrow. Murmurs spread. Claire's hand moved instinctively toward her abdomen. The message did not say possible heir. It did not request an examination. It declared the pregnancy as fact. Rowan noticed the same detail. His expression hardened. Who witnessed your diagnosis? Only Dr. Nora, Claire answered. Adrian knew absolutely nothing when I left. Across the room, Maeve retrieved Claire's medical envelope from a locked case. The original seal remained intact, yet a thin silver thread beneath the flap had been cut and carefully fused again. Someone had opened the file, copied its contents, and resealed it before Claire carried it from Blackthorne Keep. Claire stared at the severed thread while cold certainty settled over her. Gideon's people had known about the twins before Adrian touched the cradle. The false arrest order had been prepared before her escape. Someone inside Nightfall had expected the Luna to run and planned to hunt her without mercy. Claire entered Ironwood's council chamber carrying no royal crest, only the pack ledger tucked beneath her arm. 12 elders sat around a crescent table, while Rowan remained standing behind an empty chair. No one invited her to take it. Their silence was deliberate, a test disguised as courtesy. Claire placed the ledger on the polished wood and looked at every face before speaking. "Which of you wants the villages hungry?" Elder Bram scowled. "We object to sheltering Nightfall's Luna, not feeding our people." "Then stop treating those problems as separate," Claire replied. She opened 3 maps and marked the mountain roads with red ink. "Your missing grain is not stolen after departure. It is purchased twice, recorded once, and redirected through companies controlled by men sitting within this territory." The chamber lost its certainty. One elder demanded proof. Claire turned the ledger toward him, revealing matching invoice numbers beneath altered dates. "Freeze 6 accounts, inspect the western warehouse, and reroute tomorrow's medicine convoy." Another elder laughed. "You arrive under sanctuary and ask for financial command?" Claire met him without blinking. "No. I offer a choice between wounded pride and living children." Rowan hid a smile. The vote passed by one hand, Rowan's. He signed a temporary warrant and slid it across the table. "You have 12 hours. Claire took it. "I need 8. Confident. Pregnant, exhausted, and hunted," she said. "Confidence is cheaper than panic." The room no longer saw a discarded wife. The western warehouse smelled of wet timber, spoiled flour, and mouse droppings. Claire walked the aisles with Rowan and his quartermaster, checking seals rather than contents. On the 9th stack, she stopped. The blue wolf, stamped on each crate, faced east. Ironwood's official mark always faced west. She cut a rope, opened the lid, and found medicine bottles packed beneath sacks labeled winter oats. "Those were declared lost last week," the quartermaster whispered. Claire examined the wax. A crescent-shaped nick crossed every seal, matching Nightfall relief crates handled by council merchants. Rowan muttered, "My cook hides stolen sugar with more discipline." Claire answered, "Your cook may deserve command." The quartermaster swallowed a laugh. They searched the office above the loading floor. Claire found duplicate manifests inside a false bottom drawer, signed by merchant houses loyal to Gideon Voss. The stolen supplies had crossed back into Nightfall through an abandoned toll station, then vanished into an account called Eastern Recovery. Claire recognized the phrase from Nightfall's civilian budget. A messenger arrived, carrying a metal case from Evelyn Shaw. Inside lay Claire's personal pack ledger and a note. "They searched your rooms. I sent what they missed. Trust no council signature after the winter audit." Claire touched the ink, briefly overcome by unexpected loyalty. For 1 second, Ironwood felt less like exile than refuge. She spread both ledgers across Rowan's desk. For 3 years, Nightfall had transferred monthly payments to Eastern Recovery Estate. The amounts were disguised as border rehabilitation, healer pensions, and burial compensation. Every authorization bore Gideon's name. Claire checked the earliest entry twice. It began 4 months after Celeste's funeral. The final payment had cleared only 12 days before Celeste walked back into Adrian's life. Rowan stood opposite her, all humor gone. Did Adrian know? Claire remembered his shock and the request for 48 hours. Not about this. The answer absolved nothing. It separated one betrayal from another. Adrian had chosen the bedroom. Gideon had built the path leading to it. Claire traced the account code to a hidden property number. The location matched an estate near the eastern cliffs, officially abandoned after a fire. Rowan found the grounds bordered by private council land. Claire rested a hand over her unborn children. Someone had financed Celeste's survival, guarded her location, and timed her return precisely when Claire began auditing council funds. That timing made Claire's blood colder than the winter wind outside. Rowan closed the ledger. A dead woman does not collect maintenance. Claire understood why Gideon wanted her removed before the next audit. Celeste's return had never been a miracle. The affair was not the beginning of the conspiracy, only the moment the trap closed. Celeste was never dead, Claire said. The council was keeping her. Nightfall began failing before Adrian admitted Claire was gone. At sunrise, 3 subordinate alphas crowded the council chamber, demanding grain shipments that had never arrived. At noon, healing houses reported empty medicine shelves. At dusk, the northern garrison sent word that winter uniforms remained locked in an unsigned warehouse. Adrian read every complaint twice, searching for sabotage, yet each page ended with the unanswered question: who now held Claire's authority? Celeste entered the chamber wearing a silver gown chosen from the royal wardrobe. She moved toward the Luna chair beside Adrian's throne, but Steward Elian blocked her path. His hands trembled, though his voice did not. The seat remained sealed under maternal sovereignty. Celeste smiled. I am the king's chosen companion. Elian lowered his gaze. Companionship does not override the cradle, my lady. Until it opens, nightfall has no Luna. Adrian expected Celeste to protest. Instead, she looked at him, forcing him to choose between law and embarrassment. He dismissed the room, but the damage remained. Claire had trained those stewards, written the budgets, and created the signatures required to release civilian funds. Adrian had praised her efficiency without learning its shape. Now every locked cabinet and unanswered petition revealed how his kingdom rested inside the hands he had discarded. That night, Adrian returned to the nursery alone. The black moonstone cradle waited beneath the window, silent except for the pulse buried beneath its seal. He placed the key against the central rune. Nothing happened. He used his Alpha command, letting power shake the walls. Open. The silver borders flashed, and heat exploded through his palm. Adrian staggered backward, skin blistering, while the scent of burned flesh filled the room. Dr. Nora Ellison arrived carrying bandages and no sympathy. She examined his hand, then the cradle. Ancient law does not answer dominance, she said. It answers consent. Adrian's breathing remained uneven. Tell me what Claire invoked. Nora traced the darkened runes without touching them. Maternal sovereignty. Until the mother returns willingly, or a sovereign trial opens this seal, no Luna may be crowned, and no competing heir may be recognized. Adrian stared at the place where Claire's ring lay hidden. She was pregnant. Nora's silence became an accusation. He turned. How long? 8 weeks, when she left. The room tilted. 8 weeks meant Claire had known before entering the tower. She had carried his children while watching Celeste wear his shirt. Nora pressed 2 fingers against a rune. The cradle answered with pulses. Not a child, she said. 2 heirs. Regret did not arrive. It struck Adrian as memory. Claire refusing wine at supper. Claire resting a hand over her stomach during council. Claire asking him to meet her after midnight. She had been coming to tell him. Instead, he had demanded 48 hours for the crown. His hand closed until the bandages reddened. Then he fully understood that losing Claire was not a possibility. It was already happening. The next morning, Celeste entered the council chamber holding a medical file against her chest. Gideon Voss walked beside her, grave and protective. Nightfall cannot remain leaderless, he announced. Lady Celeste carries the Alpha King's child. The council must recognize her as temporary Luna until Claire is recovered. Silence spread across the table. Adrian looked at Celeste, then at the paper she offered him with carefully trembling hands before everyone. The report stated 6 weeks. It bore Nora Ellison's name, the Royal Clinic seal, and blood work confirming an Alpha heir. Celeste touched Adrian's sleeve. I did not want to tell you this way. Her voice broke exactly where sympathy required. Gideon urged an immediate declaration before the subordinate packs learned Nightfall lacked a recognized Luna. Adrian felt every eye measuring whether grief had weakened him, beyond command or reason itself. Before Adrian answered, the chamber doors opened. Nora strode inside, summoned after seeing the file. Gideon's expression barely changed. Celeste's fingers tightened around Adrian's sleeve. Nora took the report, examined the seal, and read the final page. Then she lifted her gaze to the council. This pregnancy record is fraudulent. Adrian rose. Nora placed 1 finger beneath the signature. That is my name, she said. But I never examined Celeste. Thomas Wren had spent 6 years pretending the Eastern Cliff estate was empty. When Rowan brought Claire through its rusted gates, the caretaker was waiting beside a dead fountain, his shoulders bent beneath a gray coat. He did not ask why Nightfall's former Luna had come. His eyes dropped immediately to the pack ledger beneath her arm. "You found the payments," he said. Claire answered, "I found a prison disguised as an expense. Inside the estate, dust covered the furniture, but one upstairs bedroom remained carefully preserved. Dresses filled the wardrobe. Medical tonics lined the shelves. A portrait of Adrian stood face down inside a locked drawer. Thomas opened a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards and removed a parchment darkened by old blood. Gideon Voss's signature appeared beside Celeste Marrow's. He offered her 2 futures, Thomas said. Remain dead and protected, or return when he called and take the crown she believed was stolen from her. Claire studied the blood pact. It promised Celeste money, safety, and recognition as Luna. In exchange, she would obey Gideon's timing, repeat the captivity story he prepared, and support the council's claim over any future heir. Was she forced to sign? Claire asked. Thomas looked ashamed. She was frightened, angry, and tired of being invisible. But no blade touched her throat. She read every line twice. The answer gave Claire no satisfaction. Celeste had been used, yet she had also chosen to become the weapon. Claire understood desperation too well to dismiss it, but understanding was not absolution. She folded the pact carefully. Then she will answer for what she chose, and Gideon will answer for building the choice. Rowan watched her without interrupting, his respect visible in the stillness of his face. In the estate's records room, Claire found Celeste's death certificate beneath burial accounts. The document carried a magistrate's stamp and Gideon's approval, but no seal from a royal healer. Attached transport notes described a burned body, recovered wearing Celeste's necklace. A second ledger identified the corpse as Mara Vale, a condemned prisoner of the same height and coloring. Her execution record had vanished on the night of the ambush. Thomas explained the design. Gideon had wanted Adrian grieving, guilty, and dependent on council guidance. The false death made the young king easier to control. Celeste remained hidden as insurance. Years later, when Claire began tracing irregular relief funds, Gideon released the woman Adrian had never stopped mourning. He knew memory would enter the room before reason did, Claire said. Rowan's jaw hardened. And he knew your husband would open the door. Claire felt the mate mark burn beneath her collarbone, a cruel reminder that Adrian's betrayal and Gideon's conspiracy were separate truths. She could expose the trap without erasing the man's choice to step into it. She gathered the forged certificate, prisoner ledger, and blood pact. Together they proved Celeste had never died and the council had prepared her return long before Claire entered the tower. At Ironwood Hall that evening, Elder Miriam Vale examined the moonstone pendant hanging beneath Claire's collar. The old woman went pale. She asked permission before touching it, then turned the crescent clasp toward the fire. Hidden runes appeared along its edge. This belonged to Alara Ashford, Miriam whispered. Claire nodded. My mother. Miriam looked toward Rowan. Her mother descended from the Moon Wardens, the women who wrote Maternal Sovereignty. The revelation changed Claire's standing immediately. Moon Warden blood allowed her to demand a sovereign trial without council approval, represent the unborn heirs directly, and challenge any royal claim made under a false seal. For the first time since leaving Nightfall, Claire possessed authority that did not depend on Adrian's title or Rowan's protection. She closed her fingers around the pendant, feeling her mother's history settle like armor over her grief. Before the elders could prepare the trial petition, Rowan entered carrying a sealed order taken from a captured Nightfall courier. The royal wolf marked the wax. Claire broke it and read the single command twice. No arrest, no return, only execution. Adrian's seal commanded that no heir under Ironwood's protection be allowed to survive the night. Adrian did not sleep after Nora exposed the forged pregnancy file. Before dawn, he summoned Mason to the sealed nursery and placed the assassination order beside the cradle. The royal seal gleamed in black wax, perfect at first glance. Mason bent closer, then scraped one edge with his thumbnail. Beneath the wolf's head, a second line of metal showed where an older seal had been recast. Gideon copied it while you were wounded after the northern siege, Mason said. He controlled the archives for 3 weeks. Adrian's burned hand curled. And you obeyed the arrest order. I questioned it too late. That is another name for obedience. Mason accepted the blow without defense. Then he set a brass mold on the table, stolen from Gideon's private cabinet. Its reversed crown matched the false order exactly. Across the keep, Celeste waited until the corridor outside the nursery fell silent. She wore the temporary Luna ring Gideon had ordered forged, though the metal burned cold against her skin. Hidden inside her sleeve was a vial of Claire's blood, stolen from the royal clinic before Claire escaped. Gideon had promised that the Cradle would recognize the blood, open, and erase the Moon Warden claim before the trial writ arrived. She unlocked the nursery with Gideon's council key. The moonstone cradle stood black beneath the window. Celeste approached slowly, remembering the night Adrian had whispered that her return felt like the dead breathing again. She had mistaken grief for devotion. Now his guards watched her, his healer called her a liar, and the kingdom refused to name her Luna. She uncorked the vial and let Claire's blood fall onto the central rune. The cradle answered with a violent silver flash. For one breath, Celeste smiled. Then the rune rejected her. Fire raced through the false ring, burning into her finger. She screamed and struck the cradle with her free hand. Black light wrapped around her wrist, drinking a bead of her own blood before hurling her across the room. Servants rushed in as the ring split open and fell smoking onto the floor. Adrian arrived before Gideon could remove the witnesses. He found Celeste kneeling beside the broken ring, her palm blistered, her face stripped of softness. "Tell me the truth," he said. Gideon began speaking about unstable magic, but Adrian's aura crushed the words from him. Celeste looked at the blood trapped inside the cradle's runes and understood that another lie would become evidence. "There is no child," she whispered. The medical file was forged. Adrian's face did not change, which frightened her more than rage. "Did Gideon force you into my bed?" Celeste flinched. "He arranged my return. He taught me what to say. He promised the crown would protect me." "That was not my question." Her eyes filled, but her voice hardened. "He arranged the path, Adrian. He did not make you open the door." The truth struck harder because Adrian could not punish anyone else for it. Gideon had designed the trap. Celeste had carried the bait, but Adrian had chosen betrayal. He turned toward the cradle. Beneath its black surface, 2 heartbeats pulsed steadily, untouched by his explanations. "Guard Gideon," he ordered. "Confine Celeste to the east wing. No healer, servant, or counselor leaves the keep without my permission." Gideon laughed softly. "You cannot imprison the Crown Council." Adrian stepped close enough that the older man's smile faded. "You forged my seal, hunted my mate, threatened my children, and tried to install a false heir. Today you are fortunate I still believe in trials." A shadow crossed Gideon's face, then vanished. "Trials require petitioners. Claire is hiding behind Mercer's army." A raven struck the nursery window before Adrian could answer. Mason opened the window and removed a tube from the raven's leg. The seal belonged to Ironwood, but the crescent pressed above it was older than Kingdom. Adrian broke it. Inside lay Claire's demand for a sovereign trial, signed in Moonwarden blood and witnessed by Rowan Mercer. The hearing would begin in 7 days. Until then, no coronation, arrest, or heir declaration held force. At the bottom, Claire had written line, "I am returning to place the crown on trial." Claire returned to nightfall beneath Ironwood's black and silver banner, 7 days after her trial writ reached the castle. Snow swept across the border road, stinging the faces of the wolves gathered behind the iron gates. Rowan rode beside her, while Thomas Wren and 6 Ironwood guards followed at a respectful distance. Claire sat straight despite the weight of her 7-month pregnancy and the ache burning beneath her fractured mate mark. Nightfall's guards lowered their spears when they recognized her face, but uncertainty moved through the line. Some began to kneel. Claire raised one gloved hand. "Do not kneel to me," her voice carried through the snow without strain. "I did not return as your Luna." She touched the moonstone pendant at her throat. "I return as a Moonwarden claimant under sovereign law." The captain opened the gates without another word. As she crossed the courtyard, Claire saw familiar servants watching from windows and soldiers standing where children once played. Blackthorne Keep looked unchanged, yet it no longer felt like home. Rowan dismounted first but did not offer his hand until Claire looked at him and nodded. He helped her down without touching her longer than necessary. That small restraint steadied her more than any promise of protection could have done. Adrian waited inside the abandoned council library, alone and unarmed. The bandage around his burned palm had been removed, revealing the silver scar left by the cradle. For a moment, neither spoke. His gaze dropped to Claire's rounded stomach before returning to her eyes. "Twins," he said, and the word broke inside him. Claire remained beside the closed door. "You learned that from the cradle, not from me." "I know," Adrian swallowed. "Celeste's pregnancy was false. Gideon forged my seal, funded her hiding, and issued the order against you." Claire watched hope flicker across his face, the desperate hope that exposing the conspiracy might reduce his share of the blame. "Gideon built the trap," she said. "Celeste carried it. You still opened the door." Adrian's shoulders lowered. "I did." The confession offered no excuse, and therefore mattered more than pleading. "I want to protect them," Adrian said. "Whatever happens at the trial, let me protect our children." The mate mark flared, tempting Claire with old memories. His hand over hers, his laughter in private, the future she had once planned. She let the pain pass without obeying it. "Your right to stand near them will be decided by your actions today," she answered. "Not by blood, rank, regret, or bond." Adrian nodded once. "Then I will testify." Claire opened the door. Rowan waited across the corridor, far enough to grant privacy, close enough to intervene if asked. Adrian looked at the rival Alpha and understood what Claire had found in Ironwood. Not possession, not rescue, but room to choose. Jealousy moved through him like poison. He accepted it silently and followed them toward the great hall, where judgment waited inside. Every seat in the great hall was filled. Pack leaders, healers, soldiers, and civilian witnesses crowded beneath the black rafters. Gideon stood beside the council table, with Celeste seated behind him, her burned finger wrapped in white cloth. Claire walked to the center carrying the sovereign trial writ. She placed it before the elders while Rowan took position as sovereign witness, and Thomas guarded the blood pact inside his coat. "I challenge the authority of this council," Claire said, "for fraud, unlawful pursuit of royal heirs, forged seals, and conspiracy against maternal sovereignty." Gideon rose slowly. "You arrive beneath an enemy banner and expect nightfall to accept your bloodline?" Before Claire answered, guards rolled the sealed cradle into the hall. Its black moonstone pulsed toward her, and silver runes awakened across its frame. The watching pack gasped as one body. Gideon stepped backward, touching the wolf head clasp at his collar. Claire saw the signal pass to guards beside every exit. Rowan saw it too, and moved closer without drawing steel. Claire raised her palm above the central rune. The cradle answered with 2 fierce heartbeats, then released a seam of white light around its lid. Gideon whispered, "Now." As the cradle opened, every door in the great hall slammed shut. The first guard moved before Gideon finished speaking. He lunged toward Claire with a silver chain in both hands, aiming for her wrists. Rowan intercepted him, but Claire did not retreat. She stepped sideways, drew the nursery dagger from beneath her cloak, and cut the chain where its links joined. The metal snapped across the floor. Around the hall, hidden loyalists surged from the walls while civilians screamed and overturned benches to find cover beneath the black rafters overhead in panic. Adrian rose from the throne dais with his aura unleashed. "Royal Guard, stand down." Half obeyed at once. The rest turned toward Gideon. That hesitation told the truth more clearly than any confession. Gideon had planted men inside the king's own command. When one guard rushed Dr. Nora, Claire crossed the evidence table and blocked the strike with her dagger, the impact jolting pain through her arm and across her swollen abdomen without stopping her. Rowan's soldiers did not storm the hall. They entered through the service passages Claire had marked on old nursery plans, cutting off Gideon's retreat without threatening the pack. Within minutes, his loyalists were disarmed. Masons seized the false seal mold from Gideon's coat as Adrian forced the chairman to his knees. Celeste remained frozen beside the council table, staring at Claire as if the woman she had tried to replace had become the law itself before the entire kingdom publicly. Claire returned her dagger to the table and placed her bleeding palm above the cradle. "I open this seal by my consent, before witnesses, under Moonwarden law." The black surface dissolved into silver light. Inside lay the Luna ring. Dr. Nora's original medical report, Claire's copied ledger page, and 2 glowing runes pulsing in separate rhythms. A dark stain along the inner rim flared when Celeste drew near and branded her blood signature publicly forever. Nora lifted the true report first. Claire carried twins 8 weeks before she left Nightfall. Then she raised Celeste's forged file. This document copies my seal, but the blood values were fabricated. Celeste Marrow is not pregnant. Thomas Wren stepped forward with the blood pact. Mason followed with the reversed seal mold. One by one, the conspiracy became visible. A false death, hidden payments, a staged return, an invented heir, and an assassination order issued against unborn royal children, deliberately. Gideon tried to speak, but Claire stopped him. You will answer after the evidence finishes. Celeste broke first. She claimed fear, captivity, and promises of safety. Claire listened without cruelty. What happened to you was wrong, she said. What you chose to do to me was also wrong. Celeste's face collapsed because mercy had denied her the easier shelter of hatred. Gideon received none. The pack heard every word in silence and remembered it all. At last, Adrian stepped down from the dais. He removed the crown and set it beside the opened cradle. I knew nothing of Gideon's plan, he said, his voice carrying to every corner. But I knew I had a mate. I knew my vows. No conspiracy forced me to betray them. Celeste closed her eyes. Gideon looked disgusted. Claire simply watched, because accountability spoken too late was still accountability, but it was not restoration, and could never become love again. Claire touched the moonstone pendant. The severance words came without trembling. She named the betrayal, invoked the maternal clause, and released Adrian from the bond he had broken. Pain tore through both of them. Adrian fell to one knee. Claire remained standing as the mark beneath her collarbone faded from black to silver, then disappeared. Across the hall, hundreds of wolves felt their former Luna become wholly her own before their stunned and silent eyes. The elders pronounced Gideon guilty of treason, pending interpack judgment. Celeste lost every claim to title and heirship. Then Adrian placed both hands on the crown and pushed it across the floor until it stopped at Claire's boots. Decide whether I deserve to rule, he said. Claire looked down at the symbol he had protected above her dignity, above truth, and almost above their children. The entire kingdom waited for her answer, while the crown touched her boot in silence. Claire did not pick up Adrian's crown. She bent, lifted it with both hands, and placed it on the evidence table beside the opened cradle. Nightfall does not need another ruler chosen by blood and grief, she said. It needs laws strong enough to survive the people who hold power. Every wolf watched as Adrian lowered his head and accepted the judgment without argument before the silent kingdom watching. The elders formally stripped Gideon Voss of his title, lands, and council authority. He would remain inside Silver Keep until the Interpack Court tried him for treason, forgery, attempted murder, and conspiracy against royal heirs. Gideon demanded Adrian intervene. Adrian did not look at him. The man who had shaped kings was dragged away by guards who no longer feared his name. His protests faded beyond the iron doors, slowly. Celeste stood beside the broken Luna ring, with her burned hand pressed against her chest. Claire refused Gideon's demand for execution. I will not build freedom from the same cruelty that imprisoned my mother, she said. Celeste was placed beneath a truth oath, stripped of every claim, and banished from all northern royal packs. Mercy spared her life, but it could not spare her from living with her choices. Then Claire turned to Adrian. He stood without crown, title suddenly looking heavier than gold. The trial ordered Nightfall to replace 3 permanent council seats with elected pack representatives, publish civilian accounts, and place healing houses beyond royal interference. Adrian agreed to every reform. He did not call the punishment unfair. For the first time, Claire saw him choose truth, knowing it would diminish power before the people he ruled. After the hall emptied, Adrian found Claire beside the nursery window. Snow softened the courtyard beyond the glass. I will not ask you to forgive me, he said, but give me one chance to become their father. Claire studied the silver scar on his palm. You are asking for a place in their lives, she replied. You are not asking for a place in mine. Adrian nodded once. She gave him the father's oath, written beneath Moon Warden law. Adrian read each condition aloud. He would never separate the children from Claire, use their bloodline to strengthen his throne, or bring them into Blackthorne Keep without her consent. Any violation would end his parental rights. The final clause required him to place their safety above nightfall itself. He signed with blood and pressed his uncrowned hand beneath Claire's name. Adrian looked at her after the oath sealed. "Is there any road back to us?" Claire felt the bond only as a memory, like pain beneath healed skin. "You told the truth when it cost you everything," she said. "That matters. It does not restore what you broke." His eyes closed. Claire continued, gently but without hesitation. "You may become a good father. You are no longer my future, Adrian." 7 weeks later, dawn broke over Moonhaven Sanctuary as 2 newborn cries filled a white ash room. Evan arrived first, furious and strong. Hope followed with one tiny hand curled beneath her chin. Claire held them inside the cradle once sealed against a kingdom. Its moonstone now shone warm beneath their blankets. No runes guarded the lid. No law needed to keep the children safe from the people around them. Adrian came under escort and waited outside until Claire invited him in. He carried no crown, only the signed oath and 2 hand-carved wooden wolves. When Claire placed Evan in his arms, Adrian wept without hiding it. He did not ask to hold Hope until Claire offered. Across the room, Rowan remained near the doorway, giving the family a moment that belonged to them, not to his hopes for tomorrow. After Adrian left, Rowan approached the cradle carrying Moonhaven's charter instead of a ring. The document granted Claire sovereignty over the sanctuary. "No claim on you," he said. "Only land that answers to your name." Claire read it, smiled. "You may begin courting me." The cradle had never been sealed to keep Adrian out. It had been sealed until Claire was free to decide who deserved to stand beside it. So, Claire's story closes here with an open cradle, 2 sleeping children, and a woman who finally owns every choice ahead of her. Are you still here with me? Then perhaps you understand why her victory was never about making Adrian suffer. She had been betrayed, misunderstood, and treated as though years of loyalty could be replaced by one familiar face from the past. She felt the pain. She simply refused to beg someone to recognize what he had already chosen to disrespect. Claire could not control Adrian's decision, Celeste's lies, or Gideon's conspiracy. She could control whether she stayed, what she protected, and who would be allowed near her future. That is where her strength lived. Walking away did not mean she stopped loving overnight. It meant she stopped allowing love to negotiate against her dignity. Life rarely delivers a perfectly written apology with witnesses and a royal seal. Even when regret is sincere, you are still allowed to decide that the door remains closed. Choosing yourself is not selfish when staying requires you to disappear. If Claire's journey spoke to you, leave one word in the comments: dignity. And if this story gave you something worth carrying forward, gently tap like, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for the next story.